When the Traditions Muzzle Loader first arrived, I was so excited. I wanted to start right away. I opened the box right there in the living room, showing my wife and kids. Soon after opening it, I took it down to the basement, my temporary workspace or my office. I found the packing list and began unpacking it. I like to leave the small parts in the bags whenever possible. I find it so much easier and better than last minute shopping for screws or other things I may have dropped, lost, or misplaced. Finding my contents of my kit complete, I moved onto the first step of inletting the lock mechanism. Working slowly and methodically, I was able to make considerable progress. I took frequent breaks, probably more than I should have, but I wanted to avoid the typical knuckle-busting, profanity-laden project experience and ensure this was not only enjoyable, but relaxing. Inletting the butt plate was both easier and trickier than I thought. Easy because all I needed to do essentially was clean up the cast metal, apply some inletting black, or in my case, Prussian blue Permatex, and press it into the stock. Before I applied the inletting black or Prussian blue, I sort of dry fit the butt plate, finding center and tracing the outline with a graphite pencil. This line I traced acted later as a guide when applying the Prussian blue covered butt plate to the stock. Using the markings left by the Prussian blue, I began to slowly chisel away the stock until the butt plate fit to my liking. In the future, though, I will probably work from heel to toe first and then chisel away the comb. I feel I chiseled and filed just a bit too deeply along the comb this time. Everything turned out just fine, but I would still do it a little bit differently in the future. After checking the toe plate for fit, I used a vise and an old stain rag and some pliers to bend and shape the toe plate. Using the stain rag made sure I didn't mar the metal, and the needle nose gave me control and accuracy of where and how I was shaping the toe plate. Once I got the fit I liked, I began filing and shaping the toe plate to fit the butt plate. Later, when I finish the metal completely, I will refine the joint where the toe and butt plates meet, but right now I'm already pleased with the direction things are going. Next came fitting the thimbles. Starting with the rear thimble, I checked first for fit just to see what, if any, thimbles initial fit was decent, but I wanted to smooth away the crowned seams from the casting process. With the seams filed away and the thimble edges smooth, I began the process of drilling the rear thimble screw hole. For whatever reason, be it fatigue, hunger, or just one of those days, finding center, getting the rear thimble clamped, and getting the thimble hole drilled proved almost unnecessarily difficult. Again, frequent breaks and time away ensured that cooler heads would prevail, and I was able to get the rear thimble screw holes drilled. During this time, we had a blizzard here in Colorado, and my countersink bits were in my shop, which is not connected to my house. So I decided a router bit I did have in my office, I could use that and stay warm as opposed to trekking across the property and out to the shop in the middle of a blizzard. With that router bit, I was able to countersink the thimble screws so that the screw head would not interfere with bedding the barrel. After the rear thimble was installed, I began working on installing the front thimble. After having done this once already, now this time seemed much smoother, although I did use more steps. One thing I did with the front thimble that I did not do with the rear thimble was I measured the thimble length and marked the stock where I wanted the front of the thimble to be. Then I measured and marked center lengthwise and drilled the screw hole. Again with the router bit, I countersunk the screw, ensuring the screw head did not contact the barrel. This is one of those lessons I learned that's just going to be so helpful in the future. I've got a first generation Ruger Model 77 that I'm grateful to have. It was handed down to me, but the stock has just been beat up, neglected, abused. There's cracks, there's chips. It needs a lot of repair, which I'm looking forward to doing now more than ever, honestly. But I do have a new semi-finished American walnut stock I can put on it in the meantime, and I've got some big plans for that now, especially now that I know how to inlet it properly, or at least more properly than I did. At last, we have the lock mechanism inlet, the butt plate, the toe plate, and now the front and rear thimbles installed. The next step was to fit and install the barrel tenons. After very close visual inspection, I found the tenon recesses on the barrel just slightly misshapen. Using a 1/4-inch triangular needle file, I began filing away the excess material until a cleaner and more uniform surface was visible. Next, I smoothed the back side of the tenons, or the surface that would contact the barrel, using a flat piece of 80 then 120 grit abrasive paper. I worked the tenons in a figure-8 motion across the abrasive until the barrel contact surface was level and even. Now came time to set the barrel tenons. First, I used my micrometer to find the center of the barrel by measuring the width of the flats. With the center located, I began driving the tenons into their recesses using a brass punch and a nylon mallet. With the barrel tenons installed, the next step was to measure their depth in the barrel channel and mark their centers. First, I bed the barrel fully into the stock. Then, I marked the side of the barrel with a graphite pencil along the stock. Next, as I removed the barrel from the stock slowly, I made sure to mark the front and rear of each tenon's location on the stock. This would help act as a guide later. Now, using my micrometer, I measured from the graphite line along the barrel to the center of the barrel tenon. Using the measurement from each tenon, I then measured the same distance from the top of the stock down, making sure I was between the front and rear tenon lines I marked earlier. This allowed me to mark center of the barrel tenon, or where it would be could I look through the stock. After setting up my benchtop rotary drill press, I taped the barrel into place to ensure it would not shift. Now I lined up the drill with the tenon measurement I marked on the side of the stock. Using an old punch, I marked the center of where it was, and I proceeded to drill out both the barrel tenon pinholes. The next step in the process of assembling the Traditions Muzzle Loader was to install the nose cap, beginning with checking the fit of the nose cap to the stock and along the barrel. I dry fit the nose cap, made certain it was not in contact with the barrel. Next, I inspected the nose cap for imperfections from the casting process, and I filed away blemishes, ridges, and seams. Now with the nose cap metal work completed, I rechecked the fit and marked the center of the nose cap. Then using a speed square, I extended that center line lengthwise along the nose cap. Then using my micrometer, I measured evenly from each end and marked the location for the nose cap screw holes. Using a centering drill, I centered the holes then started them just enough for an 1/8 inch drill bit to bite into the surface. With the 1/8 inch drill bit, I drilled out the holes for the nose cap screws. Next, I fit the nose cap again to the stock and marked the location of those nose cap screw holes. Again, with the 1/8 inch drill bit, I drilled out the nose cap screw holes, this time in the stock at those marked locations. Using the same router bit to recess the thimble screws, I chamfered the nose cap screw holes, stopping frequently, checking for fit until the nose cap screws were flush with the nose cap. Now I installed the nose cap to the stock, installed the screws, and using my rotary tool and a metal cutoff wheel, I cut away excess nose cap screw threads, the ones that protruded into the barrel channel. You'll see that process coming up here shortly. It appears I got a little ahead of myself. I did end up mistakenly using the wrong screws here, and I'm not even thinking about it, went ahead and cut that excess thread away, but it all wound up working out. I used the same inletting technique as before with the lock mechanism to inlet the trigger assembly, working slowly, stopping often, checking the fit, and ensuring the function of the lock mechanism. Fitting and inletting the trigger guard was perhaps one of the easiest steps in the process. Virtually no material needed to be removed from the stock, and once the metalwork was complete, the fit was near perfect. Now, with all the hardware essentially installed, it came time to shape the stock. This was, for me, the most enjoyable part of this entire process. I really enjoyed inletting the lock mechanism, the trigger guard, the trigger mechanism. Inletting those parts, I found it very interesting, very relaxing, and also enjoyable. But shaping the stock, and I did add a carving. I'm going to be adding some more eventually, but it just seemed so much more relaxing, so much more enjoyable. I can easily see myself in the future doing this again. I've already got so many ideas. My enthusiasm right now, at least, is very high moving forward with this. I used various files. I made sure to chalk them well, card them frequently. I worked slowly, very slowly. There's hours and hours and hours of video that I've cut out just to get it down to the time that it is at this point. But even still, it was just really relaxing, really enjoyable. I love this whole process. I'm very excited to do it again. I added some things to the stock, just small features, palm swells, added some more curvature in front of the flats on either side where the lock mechanism and the lock mechanism screws are. On each side of that, I used a half round file. I shaped the stock right there at the rear thimble just to make sure the stock didn't quite flow with the thimble. So I shaved away some of the wood just to make things more uniform there. I did end up running the file over some of the metal and everything while shaping it, but I was perfectly okay with that. None of it was too deep a gouge or too significant a mar that I ruined anything. I know I'm gonna have my work cut out for me when it comes time to clean them up and polish them, but still, I'm quite satisfied with that because of the fit I got with the stock. Shaping the forend to match the nose cap and blend very evenly. Checking the height on either side of the barrel just to make sure there's a nice uniform fit and feel. I ran my hands up and down the stock countless times. I didn't remove any dents, primarily because I didn't find too many, not even small ones. I did come across a couple, but they're in areas that I intend to carve, so I figured I would just wait and see if they were still there after the carving process was complete. I wasn't quite sure how the steaming would affect the carving, so I wanted to just leave it alone until afterwards if needed. I've got carving on either side of the buttstock I'd like to add. One up middle, one on either side near the forend, right behind the nose cap actually, and one midway down the stock on either side that I'll be doing, provided things continue to go well. Again, I cannot stress enough how enjoyable this was. Here I'm shaping the palm swell. You can kind of see some of the extra curvature I added to the stock there. I did back cut a lot of the lines on the trigger guard and other parts of the metals just to add more curvature and things like that. This was really something I enjoyed, and I cannot stress how much I learned, how much it's going to go forward. Here at the buttstock, you can maybe tell that there's a swell in the butt portion of the stock. It's wider than kind of at the tip of that file area than it is back at the butt plate. I left extra material there intentionally because of the carvings I'm going to be doing. I don't want to leave myself short. That is one thing we learned. It's easier to remove material. You can't go putting it back, that's for sure. So I wanted to make sure I had enough to work with. Again, this whole experience has just been completely awesome. I'm so thrilled with it. I do have some gouges there in the buttstock that will need to be worked out. I'm hoping most of those come out during the carving process, but we shall see. Here shortly you'll see the one carving I've already put on the stock and the charcoal lining of the next carving to come. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and your feedback. Traditional Muzzle Loader, Week 8. Sonoran Desert Institute.